Alright, hello, welcome back to the podcast. Once again, everybody, PayPal and Patreon links are down below if anybody wants to support me. Only do so if you actually can. So, probably quicker episode this time. Just looking at the fact that the market, in its general reference, seems to be ignoring reality for some reason, and I'm particularly referring to metal prices, as most of them are way too low compared to what they should be, and a number of them are even decreasing when they should quite literally be doing the exact opposite, as their demand is still there despite quote-unquote market fears, and especially for some of them, those involved in electric vehicles and renewable energy in particular, their demand is still increasing, and most importantly, their inventories, their available extra stock to fill any demand gaps, are very quickly approaching rock bottom for some of them, with many of them now down to only around or even less than 5% of the larger amounts that we once had in storage back in the early 2010s, when everything had a massive supply glut. Now normally, as inventories get low and supply starts getting thin, the prices go up, as they are supposed to, as that's kind of how the whole balance is intended to work. The increasing price serving as a gradual deterrent and warning system that supply might not be in the best condition, and thus as it goes higher and higher, gradually dissuading more and more demand. Meanwhile, the additional funding being generated from the sales of the metals being made during times of increased prices, eventually resulting in new mining operations and expanded production at already existing mining operations, thus increasing, or at least maintaining, or even in some cases just slowing the decline of supply of the metals. However, despite how dangerously low some of these inventories are currently going, their prices are not reacting to it. In fact, as I said, many of them are even decreasing, with the reason for said decreases that's usually given generally being something along the lines of investors are scared of a potentially unstable market, or investors are afraid that banks might raise interest rates. So for the most part, it seems like a bunch of what ifs, and in some cases actually it is stuff that is already happening and has been proved irrelevant, as the demand hasn't changed. The metal is still being taken away and being used. The inventories are still being drawn down. The course isn't shifting. Prices really should be going up. I'm genuinely curious at this point to see if it's going to stay in a state like this and they're just going to keep getting drawn further and further down until actual physical supply deficits, supply absences, suddenly appear with no increasing price warning having been given beforehand. For some in particular, aluminum back in the early 2010s hit a height of having inventories and storage of almost 5 million tons, whereas now it's down almost to only 300,000 tons. Zinc inventories were at about 1 million tons back in the early 2010s. Now they're less than 100,000. I believe they're down at around 80. Nickel and lead inventories, I forget which was which, but I believe one was at 600,000, the other was at about 450,000 tons. Whereas now, nickel's down to almost only 60,000, and lead is at about 38 or 39,000 only. Yet again, the prices are remaining low and in some cases even dropping, which is ultimately not going to end well, because either they're going to get even lower and eventually their prices are going to have to course correct and they're going to jump sharply, or in the much less likely scenario, the one I mentioned prior, if they actually got so low to the point of having physical deficits, with the prices not having reacted up until that point, and then the news of actual supply deficits sending the market into a shock reaction, and the prices thus absolutely ballooning much higher, much faster than they would even under the other scenario I just described. But obviously we'll have to wait and see what happens either way. So that's it for this one. Thank you everybody for sticking around and listening. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't already. There's dozens of other episodes about all kinds of stuff, similar and not, that you can listen to if you want. PayPal and Patreon links are down there if you want to support me. Just only do so if you actually can. Go subscribe to my cat for way less depressing content. And no matter what happens to me, may God bless and protect you all, and I will see you all around next time.